Hey guys, we made it to season 5 of the Us People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and in this season, we aim to empower and embrace creativity through diversity as we dive into the fascinating stories and experiences of a diverse range of individuals, highlighting their unique perspectives and creative endeavors, from artists and entrepreneurs to innovators and activists. We celebrate the power of diversity in driving creativity and fostering positive change. Join us as we engage in thought-provoking conversations like
I made myself intentionally homeless in pursuit of my purpose.
We're aware that a lot of people want to present and they were in my position, and what's worse, they weren't a white male, which is a joke that's even still a thing.
I think my family never ever say you can't do something, so full of support for whatever dream. If I said tomorrow I want to fly to the moon, they'll probably say I wish you all the best, Mel.
So guys, I just want to say thank you for supporting the Us People podcast for the past 5 years, and we look forward to sharing another new theme song with you. Let's go.
Hi, my name is Samuel Ade. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm joining the Us People podcast with Savia Rocks. Do listen.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Us People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and today I'm humbled to have Samuel here with me. Samuel is an entrepreneur, but he's also a guru when it comes to fashion. Samuel, I want to thank you so much for taking your time to come on the Us People podcast. How are you?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
You're more than welcome. So Samuel, my first question for you is, could you tell me a bit about your background, where you grew up, and how that influenced you to be the person who you are today?
Yeah, so I'm an entrepreneur, currently running an e-commerce store for luxury black fashion brands and a platform for fashion designers to gain expertise called Alana. But I've been in business for over 15 years, running multiple startups. From a social enterprise to a marketplace for entrepreneurs to find co-working space, and my most recent venture is the e-commerce store. I grew up in South London with very interesting characters, and very strong characters. One of them being my dad, who played a crucial role in terms of just making sure that I stayed on the straight and narrow. Had my best friend as well, and she was amazing, but yeah, I had a really lot of strong characters around me that really helped shape me in my identity and who I am as a young person growing up in South London.
I love that. I totally love that. See, I know that. I was just talking to someone yesterday, and what they said to me, sometimes there is a lot of temptation, and there are a lot of people or people who you think are friends who can tempt you into doing things that is not your purpose, and sometimes that can take you off track of who you want to be and how you want to be as a person. So one of the things I do want to ask you, have you ever been tempted by, temptation from street life, as they say?
Yeah, of course. Definitely. I think just from a young age, I had quite a lot of strong influences in terms of going down that path. Like my best friend growing up, unfortunately, ended up in prison for a long stretch due to criminality. So it was always around me, from as young as I can remember. I had really pivotal people in my life that were caught up in that lifestyle. But for me, what plays a major role, especially from a young age, was faith. So I became a Christian quite early on, at 16, and that was due to my best friend. She dragged me to her place without knowing where I was going. Before you know, I was in a Bible studies, and before you know it, it just kind of resonated deeply with who I was and where I was at the time. So that really just kind of was key to me staying on the straight and narrow. I'm following the right path. But absolutely, there was a time where I actually went down that path myself, for a few years, and I got caught up in things that I shouldn't get caught up in. But I managed to come out the other side of it, and I managed to obviously turn things around, to where I am today.
See? And that's how I know, when something is meant for you, Samuel, it is meant for you, which kind of leads me to my next question, which is, Can you tell me, or can you define who you are as a person, but also who do you see when you look in the mirror? But on the flip side of that question, has there ever been a time where you have looked in the mirror or not recognized the person staring back at you? How did you manage to go from a person that you might not have resonated with in the reflection of the mirror to becoming a person that you feel has purpose?
Good question. I think for me, growing up, I don't think there's ever really been times where I've questioned my identity in terms of who I am as an individual. I've always kind of been self-aware to know that there is a purpose to my life, even though I couldn't always articulate it or always understand it.
Yeah.
I just had an inclination that there is just a future ahead of me, and there is a purpose to the reason why I exist and the reason why I live. There have been times where obviously it's been difficult, and at times I've just been unsure in terms of how things will work out. But I don't think I've ever got to a place where I've questioned who I am as an individual or my purpose for living or my purpose in life. I just kind of always knew that innately I was destined for great things or to do things that will impact others.
I love that. See, sometimes it's hard because sometimes we go down a path and we don't know, but I love it when I find somebody who has the confidence to know that as soon as they come down here, they have a purpose of knowing what they are doing to help other people. Some people it takes a lifetime. Some people they're lucky and they find it very at a young age, and for that they bring wisdom to people, they help people, they nurture people. So let's talk about the fashion world. The fashion world is a very competitive world. I'm sure you know this, Sam. It's an absolutely competitive world, but a brilliant one to be in. Some people might say it's pretentious. I always look on the optimistic side of life, where I see everything in life as an opportunity. Even when one door closes, another one opens. That's how I see the positivity of life. So talk to me about why you decided to choose fashion, because there are so many creative, artistic, things that you can do. And I know you're talented. I know you're being humble. I know you're not saying, but talk to me about the reason why fashion resonated with you.
Inspiration was my mother. I kind of, obviously she was an aspiring fashion designer, so we set up a honor in honor of her memory. But it's just interesting. So I grew up around fashion. I grew up around my mom trying to make it in the fashion industry and seeing the highs and lows of that journey. So I've always kind of had a love for fashion, even from a younger age. But to be honest with you, I think it's just more of knowing that God's in this, and this is what God desires for me to do in this particular stage of my life. I think for me, it was just a unique time. I think there's a lot of brands, especially West African brands, that need exposure, that really need, spotlight on what they're doing. So Alana is a great platform and a way for us to do that. But for me, it was just mainly just wanting to shine a light on up-and-coming talent, emerging talent that I feel is not being recognized in the industry. Fashion, as you know, is amazing industry to be in, but it's very elitist, and unless you come from a particular background or, you have wealth behind you, it's very hard to penetrate. So for us, we kind of just looked at the ecosystem and said, what can we do to help shine a light on emerging talent and, bring them to the forefront? We created Alana to ensure that we can do that. And what's unique about our platform is that we provide, mentorship and one-to-one support, on the fashion designer's journey. So they can upload images of their sketches and different stages of the development process to the platform and get feedback on each stage of that development process.
I love that.
As well as access, brands on our platform to shop and buy from. So it's a two-tier platform. And we created it just to help shine a light on emerging talent and fashion designers within the industry, especially Black ethnic.
How do you find talent, Sam? With Alana, how do you find talent to know that the talent comes to you? Does the talent come to you and find your platform? Do you go out and find, the talent and say, look, you're doing great things. I think you can do with some help. This is what we do. This is how we do it. Break it all down for me. I know you told me a bit about it, but I'd love for you to break that down even more so that people can understand your platform and even more so come to you and say, look, I've got this design, I'm designing this, or I've got this, collection. Especially that, because some people work with collections, some people work with a specific item and they need help. And a lot of people do need help. And
Absolutely.
Your platform is a great platform to be able to emphasize that, to articulate that. Please tell me more.
Yeah, so for us, with the actual storefront, we are quite particular in terms of the brands we work with. So we ensure that they meet a certain standard in terms of operation, whether they've been operating for a certain amount of time, they ship internationally, the quality control in terms of the kinds of fabrics they use, what their brand ethos is, and various things like that. So there is a criteria to actually be on our store. When it comes to the community, we're open to all. So we particularly target self-taught designers who may not necessarily have gone down the educational route, but had an idea for a brand that they wanted to start, and they didn't know how to get started. So for us, it's very much about how do we help them where they're at. And yeah, like the lady who came up with the process, she spent 17 years in fashion, so she understands fashion from different levels and different tiers, and she was able to come up with this process that really helps designers, at every stage, whether they're, just starting out, whether they're experienced, or whether they're just, in need of support. So yeah, for us, it's very much kind of seeing how we can partner them with an expert, give them consulting to help them develop something that they're proud of and that they can actually, bring to the world, in the best way possible.
I love that. Talk to me about how you implement your culture, because culture plays a massive part in how we are creatively and how we make a mark on the industry creatively, but most of all within the world, and how we, because a lot of the time, if you've noticed, people, and I can say this because I've seen it, a lot of people would steal people's ideas. And I was always taught that if somebody's stealing your ideas, then obviously it's a great idea, naturally. It's a horrible thing for someone to steal your idea, but it's also a great thing to know that you're a genius to have that idea in the first place. But talk to me about culture. Talk to me about how, you implement culture in your work within creativity.
Yeah, before I tackle that, you mentioned something interesting about ideas, and one of the things I tend to talk about is the fact that what separates us, in terms of our ideas is execution, right?
Exactly.
And what we shouldn't be afraid of is not telling people our ideas because we're afraid our ideas will get stolen.
Exactly.
The reality is that no one will be able to execute your idea in the way that you can execute it because
Thank you so much.
Uniquely you. So yeah, it's about understanding that. But going back to culture, I think culture plays a vital part in what we do. And quite early on, I was quite particular in terms of the kinds of people I wanted to work with, ensuring that our vision and values align. And just ensuring that there is a foundation laid in terms of what we represent and what we're about. Our strat plan is creating a pathway for emerging talent, and that's something that is very at the heart of what we do. In as much as we work with, established brands, it's very much helping create a pathway for talent to get out there and to be seen and to be recognized. I think culture is very important. It's important that you establish a culture that understands the need to experiment.
Yes, I like that.
And that has an attitude to just kind of push things to the best place it can be. Do you know what I mean? A culture of excellence. So those three things are very core to what we do. We want to be experimental in the way that we approach things in the fashion industry and what we pioneer within the fashion industry. But we don't also want to become complacent. We have an attitude of constantly developing and learning. And then we want to ensure that what we put out there is excellent, that we represent our brands and those that we work with in a best possible way that they can be represented.
Yes. I completely agree. Talk to me about one of the things that's also very important is mental health when you're a creative person. Creativity does take a toll, Sam. I know you know this, on all of us at some point in our life. But I always like to talk about the positivity and how to overcome that so you can keep on achieving and believing in your ability to shine as a person when you are creative. And creativity is in every spectrum, in every field. It doesn't matter your profession. But one of the things I would love to be able to ask you from your perspective is talk to me about how you sustain your mental health in being able to help people but also help yourself and keeping a balance.
I think with the balance aspect of things, I struggle in that regard, and I can be quite honest. That I have a tendency to look after others, and then it's at the expense of myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's something that obviously I think is an ongoing struggle, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, we go through different stages and seasons in life where we give more than we should, or we're selfish in our giving. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like you go through you go through that phase of, do you know what I mean, just different cycles, right?
Yeah, I agree.
And for me, I think God is at the heart of it. I won't lie to you. Do you know what I mean? I think just in terms of the entrepreneurial journey in general, it's a lonely journey, and it's extremely difficult to keep positive and keep optimistic about things, especially when, the climate's difficult, or, the economy is bad, or, you're losing, you're not necessarily seeing the results that you expected to see when you started a journey.
Yeah.
But for me, God's played a major part in that. Do you know what I mean? My faith. What I would also say as well is my support system. I've got incredible people around me that encourage me and support me, and just keep me positive. My community plays a major part in just me staying positive and keeping optimistic about the future and what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I think for me, just having a sense of purpose in what we're doing, seeing brands that we work with, come onto our platform and be more exposed or get more, success than they imagine. I think just the purpose and the fulfillment of what we do as well keeps me positive and keeps me grounded.
See, and that's what you need. Sometimes it takes, and actually, one of the things I do want to ask you is, have you ever compared yourself to other people within the fashion industry? The reason why I ask that is because sometimes we compare ourselves, like you said, and there's a fundamental thing you said, is that we compare ourselves sometimes because we feel like we're not where we're meant to be. Have you, Sam, ever done that where you felt like, and I always say to people, don't. This is something I say because it's so important, and I know it's easy to say, hard to do, where we turn around and say, never compare yourself, because you don't know how they got what they got, and they don't know, and you don't know if they got it with pure intentions and it was genuine, or it came down a really dark path. And I always say that to people. I always highlight to people, and your path will always be different from everybody else's, and sometimes a slow burning success is better than a fast burning out success. There is a fundamental difference between the two. But I do want to ask you, have you ever compared yourself to anybody else? And it's just so that people can understand that they're not alone in this cycle of creativity. Has that ever happened to you?
Absolutely. Definitely. I think just by being on social media, you're naturally going to compare yourself to those that are in your industry or your peers, right? Do you know what I mean? And it can seem like a lot of people are succeeding, and you're not. Do you know what I mean? On this entrepreneurial journey, like, it can just seem like everyone's doing great things, and it's hardly happening for you. But I think it's important to keep the perspective that the entrepreneurial journey, for one, is hard.
Yes.
And two, most of the success stories, it took them between 5 to 10 years for them to be successful.
Very true.
If you look at the Airbnb story, before they started gaining major traction within the business, it took 5 years, for them, to start getting the traction that required them to lead to the path of profitability. And then even if you look at the Amazon journey, it took them 9 years. So when you start to look at these journeys of, people that have built incredible businesses and, made major impact, you realize that it's not overnight.
Yeah.
And it'll be foolish for you to feel that what took them 5 or 10 years to achieve, you can do that in 1 or 2 years. So it helps you to maintain perspective. But yeah, I think just by virtue of being on social media, that everyone feels that, you know, you can start something today and blow tomorrow. And there are those outliners, you know, where circumstances were right and, you know, traction happened quite quickly, but those are the exceptions and they're not the norm. And what you find with a lot of those success stories is they don't know how to replicate that. So you'll find a lot of influencers or a lot of people that have got successful quite quickly. When it comes for them imparting wisdom and knowledge to others, they're unable to do it because they don't know how to replicate those results.
Exactly.
So one thing about, I think it's about establishing what you want quite early on. You know, do you want long-term success or do you want short-term success? You know, a lot of the businesses that plan to sell like within 5 years, they need major traction within their business within a short space of time to prove that it's profitable so they can sell it on.
Yes.
But if you're looking to build a business that is a legacy business, you need to be able to lay the right foundation to ensure that you're able to grow and it can remain growing throughout the years. So, and that takes time. But yeah, it's all about, you know, what you desire, what your outcomes are, what your goals are. But reality is that a lot of people that, you know, are showing that the entrepreneurial journey is easy don't really understand what the entrepreneurial journey is really about.
This is why I say that they only last a certain amount of time. Eventually they fade. It's a bit like music in a way. I don't know if you agree or disagree, but I'd love to hear your opinion on it. Sometimes someone can make a hit song, they're out for a certain period of time, then instantly they fade. And you never see that person again, Samuel. And they say your brand or your clothes are as good as your next hit. A bit like music, you're as good as your next hit. So, or your last hit, I should say. And that's one of the things. One of the questions I do want to ask you is, if there was one question that you wished people would ask you, but nobody rarely does, or they don't even ask you at all, what would that question be and why?
I don't know how to answer that. I couldn't say I know how to answer that, to be honest. But what I will say is in relation to just kind of like the one-hit wonder, and it's interesting because I think people only care about what you're doing now. It's like, I think that's just the virtue of just being a creative, right? People only care about your latest wonder or your latest hit or your latest
Which is
project.
a bit sad in a way.
Absolutely. And I think there is a tendency to negate or neglect your past accomplishments as a result of that, you know, because you're constantly thinking about the next thing or what you're doing now, failing to realize that the foundation and the journey played a part in who you are now and what you've been able to accomplish today. So I think it's interesting because, just where we are in terms of like the entrepreneurial world and the creative world in general is very interesting, because I think there is this tendency to just regurgitate what exists as opposed to really shake things up, you know. And when you look at the fashion industry, it's very rarely that you see innovation.
True.
And that's something that we're hoping to challenge and to change, you know, that we want to bring innovation to the fashion industry. But because it's such a what's the word I'm looking for? It's such a like very kind of rigid industry and very kind of like set in its way. Do you know what I mean? There is a certain way of doing things within the fashion industry. It can be very hard, you know, and it can be very discouraging. But that is the part of the journey, you know. Part of being the first in anything is that you're going to face resistance. You're going to face challenges. You're going to face hurdles that you never thought you're going to face. So you need to overcome that in order for you to make your mark. And there's something that Steve Jobs said that I love, is that you need to know when to lead and when to follow. You know, and I think within the industry at the moment, we're in a very pivotal place where there is so much room for change. And there's going to be a lot of leaders that are going to emerge that are going to really just shake things up within that industry. So it's an exciting time to be a part of it.
It is, and the more we speak, the better it is. And I think it's the way that it's not what you say, it's how you articulate yourself that makes, you know, a prime example, or makes an impact, I should say, on the world and the people in order to open their mind, in order for them to change and then give that wisdom to other people. Because there is a lot of ignorance within the world, and I mean that in the sense of lack of knowledge towards people, things and places. But exactly what you said, people are emerging, they will emerge. And I find, Samuel, that there are a lot of people that the world doesn't know about yet. And they are working and grafting in the background. And it's usually those people that work in the background that have the best impact on people.
Absolutely.
100%. So one of my most important questions that I always ask the guests, even before they come on the show, is what is the common misconception about the field that you work in that you would like to clear up? Samuel, do you remember what you said?
No, do you want to remind me?
Of course. Black people aren't competent to start or build a business.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah. I think that is a misconception, definitely. I think just across the board, I think, a lot of people, they assume that because you're Black or because of your background or because of your social status that you're not going to be able to build a business. And I think just understanding and being aware of that, I'm conscious of how I navigate certain spaces because I might be the only Black person that they see, and how I respond in those environments will determine how those that come after me will be received.
True.
So I'm mindful of that. But absolutely. I think just within the fashion industry, I think there is this tendency to believe that because it's Black owned or because it's a Black person who's running the business or running the brand, they're not on par with, what's out there or just the leading brands. And I think that's a misconception I definitely want to shake up and challenge, that we are competent, we are talented, we are excellent in what we produce. And there is a place for us at the table and in the industry.
I 100% agree with you on that. And I think the more that we do it and the more that we articulate our attitudes, just like you said as well, our attitudes always play a fundamental part. And that's why I said to you, even before we started the podcast, is that people always like to judge you based upon how you look rather than the content of your ability to shine.
Absolutely.
And that's something, Samuel, that we are changing. We are changing it. And sometimes, again, people are threatened by that change, because they feel like they don't have that power or they want to yield that power. And it's a shame, because I always say to everyone, there is a place for everyone in this world where they need to be or how they want to get there. There is a place for all of us. But it's the people who feel that they are being threatened or their space is getting taken away, which is not true. It's just like generations. Some generations pass away, like we had passing of like Quincy Jones and so many other people who are great in what they do, but someone else will come. They won't be them, but they'll do something spectacular in their way. And that's how it is in every profession. So that's definitely something that I think we should keep striving for. And I 100% agree with you.
Absolutely. And I think just in terms of like going back to the Quincy Jones and people of his caliber, there is this perception that you can only be successful in those industries. A Black person is limited to the entertainment industry, or limited to the sports industry, or limited to the media industry. Like outside of those three industries, Black people cannot thrive. There is that misconception as well. Do you know what I mean? So it's always good to see people outside of those industries thriving and succeeding. Do you know what I mean? We need more people of color coming up in politics, coming up in business, coming up in, sciences. Yeah, absolutely. Coming up in technology, to show that there is not just this one way of doing things in order to gain success. And that's why you find a lot of people, for instance, in, South London or, like certain lower communities striving to be footballers or striving to be going into sports, because they don't see any other output aside from those industries where they can gain success, and it's important for us to strive to be in different fields and show that it is possible to go in those fields and be successful. So, yeah.
I see what I mean. So I remember one of my friends turned around and said to me that they wanted to be a ballerina, and I said, go for it. I said,
Absolutely.
go for it. I said, the more people who are doing what they want to do, the more little kids, the more people who think that you have to be a certain age to do something. No. I know in some industries they can restrict you on age, but sometimes I feel that there are one or two of us that will push through the barriers regardless of our age to get to where we need to, because ageism is actually something that, you know, in jobs, people always turn people down because of it. And someone can look 10 times younger than you, but you don't take them because of their age, and that's where people go wrong. And this is where the judgment of things that I talk about all the time needs to end and needs to stop. If somebody is good at something and they shine within that ability to do it, allow them to do it. You know, it will help you, it will help your company, and it will also make them feel so good about themselves. And that's what life should be about. So my next question for you is, what would you do differently, which kind of connects with what we've been talking about? What would you do differently if nobody was judging you? So if there was no judgment word, the word judgment was not in the dictionary, no one could judge you, because a lot of the time we don't do things out of fear, or we don't do things because of the perception that somebody's listening or watching, and they're going to judge us. What would you do differently, Samuel, if there was no such word as judgment?
I don't think I would do anything differently, to be honest with you. I think for me, my limitations is not being how people perceive me. My limitations is being based on finance and, do you know what I mean, capability. So it's not so much that, like, there's things that I plan to do within the near future that, do you know what I mean, it's just the only reason why I haven't done it yet is because there isn't a financial support or financial foundation for me to do it. Yeah, I think for me, judgment's never really played a part in whether I do something or not. It's just been whether it's capable at that particular time or it isn't. So yeah, I don't think that there's anything I would do differently. I think by going into fashion, I'm not of a fashion background. You know, my background is design. You know, I went to school, I went to Central St. Martin's, but I didn't go down the fashion route. Hence why I started the business with a fashion designer, you know, because obviously she had the experience and expertise that I didn't. So yeah, for me, I've always pushed the limits in what I can achieve or what I can do and where I can go.
Yes.
I'm not confined by limitations that others put on me, you know, and I thank God for that. So I've always been confident from a young age that, you know, whatever I set my mind to, I can accomplish. And I think that by consequence of being the first, right, there are going to be things that certain things you come up against that you didn't expect to come up against, but that doesn't stop me. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm quite headstrong and quite stubborn when I set my mind to do things. So yeah, I don't allow judgment.
I like that. No, it's sometimes in life it's good to be stubborn because you put your foot down, you hold your ground. And there's literally nothing wrong with that at all. So Samuel, I've only got a few more for you, but one of my final ones would be, if you were stuck on a desert island for 24 hours and I said to you, you're allowed to have one president, one activist and one musician, who would you take on that island and why?
One president, one activist and one musician. I would probably take Abraham Lincoln as the president.
Oh, that's a good one.
Because I just like his approach to politics, what he was about in terms of civil rights. I think just in terms of his vision for America, he was an exceptional president. So I would love to have a conversation with him and find out why he did some of the things that he did in the way that he did it, and what he would have achieved or what you hoped to achieve if he hadn't been assassinated.
Yes.
You said one activist, right? Activist Martin Luther King. Again, I love what he did with the civil rights movement. And it would be interesting to have a conversation with him and just find out where his head was at, you know, how he felt being so young, delivering that I Have a Dream speech, you know, what people failed to realize, he was only, 35?
Yeah.
I think at the time he delivered that speech. So to be on a global platform at that age, at that time, being Black, I can't imagine the challenges that he must have faced. You know what I mean? And I'm not just talking about from a public perspective, but day to day within conversations amongst people that knew him, amongst his close relationships and circles. It'd be interesting to see how he navigated that on a day-to-day basis. And one musician. It's a hard one. I think there's so many great musicians, right, throughout
I agree.
throughout the century. I think, it would either be it would either be Michael Jackson or Aretha Franklin.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I just again, Michael Jackson's a legend, cross-generational legend. Aretha Franklin, similar, she's a legend as well.
And she's been through a lot too, yeah.
She's been through a lot, and they're both geniuses in their field. So it'd be amazing to just kind of see how they compose their songs, what their inspiration was, and just find out a bit more behind who they are as an individual. So,
I love that. When was the last time that you felt totally at peace with yourself?
Whoa, when was the last time I felt totally at peace with myself? It's a great question. I think it's funny because when my friend, or just before my friend passed, we were having this conversation, and I was saying to her that I feel I'm happiest when I'm building things, when I'm pioneering, when I'm doing things that I feel that, you know what I mean, I'm just called to do. And I would say that when I felt most at peace was 2020. Yeah, when we just started Alana, or we were on the verge of just starting Alana, and that 6 months of just building the platform and about to launch was an amazing time. Do you know what I mean? Being able to meet with the team consistently, talk through our plans, and then just seeing something that started off as an idea come to fruition within 6 months was incredible. And I feel that I was most at peace with that, knowing that what we're doing is going to change the game. And I still believe that, that in as much as it's taken longer than I anticipated, we are going to change the game. And we're just laying the foundation to be able to do that. So I would say definitely around the COVID periods was when I was most at peace.
I always say to you, or I will say to you, a slow burner is a consistent burner and a legacy burner. So don't worry about how long it takes. The sheer fact that you're doing it with the support and people around you who believe in your ability to do this, you will fly. You will 100% fly. So my last one before I humbly say thank you to you is, could you tell us where we can find you, or just if anyone wants to reach out to you to find out more information about you, what you do, how you do it, where can they find you?
So if you want to follow our brand, it's alana.uk. And that's also our handle on Instagram, Alana Africa on X. And I'm Samuel Ade _ on most social media platforms, or just Samuel Ade. If you type that, you'll be able to find me. But open to conversation, open to connecting. So feel free to reach out to me.
Samuel, this is where I say thank you so much for taking your time to come on the Ask People podcast, for showing, who you are as a person, your kindness, your pathway of who you've managed to become, and also the future of who you're going to become. So for me, that is humbling to know. And I'm going to keep following your journey to see what you're up to. So keep doing what you're doing with your team. And this is where I say just thank you so much for coming on again.
Thank you for having me.
You're more than welcome, guys. I want to thank you so much for listening to the Ask People podcast. And please remember, you can listen and subscribe and leave us a review on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, or any other platform that you prefer listening to. Please also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, X, also known as Twitter. And you can also donate to the Ask People podcast by simply going to the Savvy Rocks website or going to the Us People podcast website. And this is where I say thank you so much for listening again. Stay happy, stay positive, and as always, please continue to be kind to one another. Take care. guided through the light. Oh yeah.
No, I look forward to seeing it come out. It's a good conversation. No worries. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Just move on, so you can be free. Spread your wings and let the wind glide you high. We're just soaring through this journey, leaving fear far behind. Our hearts are filled with courage. You can win if you try. Redirect the yes to you. You'll see the power in yes if you try.
Fly like I'm Superman. Spread your wings and let the wind glide. Fly like I'm Superman. Spread your wings and let the wind glide. Fly like I'm Superman. Spread your wings and let the wind glide. Fly like I'm Superman.
Spread your wings and let the wind glide you high. We're just soaring through this journey, leaving fear far behind. Our hearts are filled with courage. You can win if you try. Redirect the yes to you. You'll see the power in yes if you try.